First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Footage of 9 pro-Palestinian protesters who were arrested in April on UF's campus has now been released by the Florida Highway Patrol, and we have that footage for you. Good evening, and thank you for joining us here on First at 5. I'm Sarah Hauer. And our Fresh Take Florida team submitted a public records request for the video when it happened. It took 90 days to obtain the footage.
Let them sit! 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 Let them sit!
The chant that rang from the crowd just before 9 people who were protesting in solidarity were arrested.
This is a crime you are committing right now!
What are the charges? What are the charges being filed? What are the charges?
Those were the questions. In the video, you can't hear law enforcement reply. One student, Alan Fraschieri, was charged with felony battery. The other 8 protesters were arrested for trespassing, failing to obey police, resisting arrest, or wearing a mask in public. All protesters have since been released. Visit WUFT.org to watch the full 17-minute video of the protest and the arrests. Tropical Storm Alberto, the season's first tropical storm named, brought heavy rains to southeast Texas today. In Surfside, drivers were forced to abandon their vehicles due to the high splurge in low-lying parts of the city. The storm weakened once it got over land, hitting Mexico first. It's been downgraded to a tropical depression. And back here at home, the threat of showers is clear for now as we take a look at the UF weather radar. But the weather team is tracking more rain in our forecast. Let's get right over to UF weather forecaster Reuben Roberts live in the weather studio, timing out when north central Florida can expect to see the next round of rain.
Thank you, Sarah. As we take a current look at the storm tracker, not much for Florida right now, but we're going to keep an eye on the tropical depression forming in Atlantic coast, and we're going to keep an eye on the tropical depression that's affecting Mexico right now. It's really affecting Alberto, and due to the low pressure, it's pushing more westward, so it shouldn't be affecting us. But let's take a closer look at the home turf. As you can see, there is a chance of a tropical depression forming, but due to the dryness in the air, the chances of a tropical depression aren't likely. But let's keep an eye as the National Hurricane Center is saying there's a medium chance of a tropical depression forming over the next 48 hours, but I wouldn't put my eggs in those baskets because of the dryness in the area. But let's take a closer look on campus. Due to the tropical depression, we're seeing more winds than usual. We're seeing 19-mile-per-hour wind. We're seeing 28 gusts. It's almost 90-degree weather outside. It feels about 91. Let's take a look around Florida for the temperatures. We're seeing high 90s. We're seeing low 80s. But coming up, I'll have more for you on the latest on the tropics. I'll have more for you about Alberto forecast and the wind and rain this weekend.
It may be the first official day of summer, but the heat has been taking over the country for weeks. At least 2 people have died due to wildfires in New Mexico, and it's another day of uncomfortable heat in the Northeast. In addition to the tragedies, wildfires have burned more than 20,000 acres and destroyed some 1,400 buildings and homes. And in the Northeast, the heat dome continues putting more than 60 million Americans under heat alerts. Cities in Maine have opened up cooling centers due to the heat wave, and the Red Cross says you need to do all you can to stay cool.
So it is so important that we all have a plan, that we're prepared during this heat wave, and that we're also ready and willing to check on our vulnerable neighbors, our vulnerable loved ones, because at the end of the day, we are all in this together.
Red Cross officials say these are all things to keep in mind through the summer, not just this week. Experts also say it's important to remember that if it's too hot for you to be outside, then it's too hot for your pets. Deputies in Columbia County need your help finding a woman who's been missing for nearly a month. Take a good look at your screen. This is 61-year-old Martina Lundy. Detectives say she has not had any contact with her family in 3 weeks, which is extremely unusual. She was last believed to be in Lake City. Lundy is 5'4" and 130 pounds with long hair and hazel eyes. If you have any information about her whereabouts, you're urged to call the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. And Florida Highway Patrol is investigating what caused a pickup truck to crash into a power pole in Ocala this morning. The crash happened just before 5:30 at the intersection of Southeast 63rd Avenue and 60th Avenue. 911 callers reported that a red pickup truck rolled over and hit a power pole. The people in the truck were able to get out but had to be taken to the hospital in serious condition. Florida has appealed a federal judge's ruling that blocked state restrictions on treatment for people with gender dysmorphia. And they want the ruling to be put on hold while the appeal plays out. Lawyers for the state filed a notice in the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals and a motion in district court seeking a stay of the ruling during the appeal. In 2023, a judge ruled unconstitutional discrimination for a state law that barred the use of puberty blockers and hormone therapy to treat children with gender dysmorphia. The law made it harder for transgender adults to access this care. Governor Ron DeSantis recently disputed the effectiveness of these treatments.
You're trying to change their basic biology, which you cannot do, okay? You cannot do that. You know, how you're born is what you are. And so I think it's about, are we going to be rooted in truth as a society or not? And if we're rooted in truth, then you would say, of course you can't do these surgeries.
In the ruling, Hinkle wrote that gender identity is real and linked opposition to transgender people to racism and misogyny. Florida and other Republican-controlled states have approved numerous laws and regulations in recent years focused on transgender people. And deputies in Marion County are sending out another warning to neighbors about the resurgence of an old scam. They've received several calls from neighbors saying an individual is claiming to be with the sheriff's office. The scammer states that you have a warrant and need to send money to avoid being arrested. Deputies say they will never call you asking for money to clear a warrant, and if you receive one of these calls, simply hang up. And first responders in Marion County are working to raise awareness about post-traumatic stress disorder. They're participating in the annual PTSD Walk Run happening next week. The event is happening next Thursday, June 27th at the McPherson Governmental Campus Wellness Trail. That's on Southeast 25th Avenue in Ocala. The event starts at 8 a.m. and 2.2 million distance will honor 22 veterans per day who commit suicide due to PTSD. The walk run is led by World War II veteran Howard Mointner, who recently turned 100 years old. All neighbors are welcome to attend. And coming up next, mourning the loss of an iconic actor, the tributes pouring in after the death of Donald Sutherland. Plus, Floridians could soon pay more to have their homes covered in the event of a disaster. When First at 5 returns, we'll share the new proposal that could increase rates by double digits.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Hollywood is mourning the loss of legendary actor Donald Sutherland. The Canadian-born actor rose to fame in the late 1960s and early 70s with film roles in The Dirty Dozen and MASH. More recently, Sutherland brought the Hunger Games villain President Snow to life on the big screen. He even starred alongside his son Kiefer in the Western Forsaken. Kiefer announced his father's death in a post on social media on Thursday. According to the agency that represented him, Sutherland died in Miami after a long illness. He was 88 years old. And tensions are rising between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Biden over the delivery of weapons and ammunition. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is meeting with Israeli officials today. As Chris Pallone reports, Blinken doesn't want the tension to boil over.
Amid increasing tensions between the U.S. and Israel over the war in Gaza, a meeting between Secretary of State Antony Blinken and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan with two top Israeli officials in Washington. Growing private disagreements spilled into the open this week when Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused the U.S. of withholding military support in a social media video.
It's inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel. Israel, America's closest ally.
The administration has responded sharply.
I'm not exactly sure what the Prime Minister is talking about or what he was trying to accomplish. Our commitment to Israel's security is sacrosanct. We have proved that not just with words, but with deeds.
The U.S. says one shipment of 2,000-pound bombs to Israel is under review, but all other military aid is flowing normally. With Netanyahu scheduled to address Congress next month, some Democrats are questioning the Israeli leader's motive for speaking out against his country's closest ally.
The video he released the other day suggests that he's coming to the United States to pick a fight, not to try to heal wounds. What I care about is Israel's security. I don't really care about Benjamin Netanyahu's political fortunes.
The war of words coming as the humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate.
It's a perfect storm of really difficult circumstances.
Desperately needed aid piling up in Gaza's ports, workers unable to deliver it because of the danger. Prime Minister Netanyahu called White House statements about his video this week personal attacks. He said he's willing to endure them as long as Israel gets the ammunition it needs. In Washington, Chris Pallone, NBC News.
Millions of borrowers will see their monthly student loan payments reduced starting next month. This is because of the Biden administration's biggest changes to the federal student loan system to date. The new repayment plan, known as Saving on a Valuable Education, or SAVE, will be fully phased this summer. For most borrowers, the plan offers a lower monthly payment than other federal student loan repayment plans. 2 states have sued to overturn the same plan. They argue that the Biden administration is overstepping its legal authority. And double-digit rate hikes could be coming for Citizens Insurance policyholders. During a meeting Wednesday, their Board of Governors unanimously backed the proposal. The new rates would amount to an average 13.5% increase for homeowners and 14.2% for condominium owners. Citizens say they are required by law to charge rates that will allow them to pay claims in the event of a disaster. The insurance group has more than 1 million policies according to their website, and the proposed increase would take effect in January. Now closer to home, Alachua County firefighters had to rescue several people trapped in an SUV due to a fallen tree. It happened Wednesday in the driveway of a home off Southeast 21st Avenue. These are pictures from the scenes. Crews arrived to find a tree on top of a Mercedes with 4 people inside. They were able to remove enough of the tree to get them out safely. The individuals were checked out at a local hospital, and firefighters want neighbors to be on alert when days are especially windy.
Taking a look at the National Hurricane Center, there's a chance for a tropical depression happening, but I'll have more for you after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome back. As we have a current outlook at the tropical satellite right now, as the tropical depression right now, it's something there, but not truly forming due to the dryness in the area. But let's take a look at an actual tropical depression due to the low pressure in Mexico. Alberto is going through it, but it is moving more westward. Nothing really coming towards us, but keep an eye on the thing at our home turf. There's something forming, but nothing truly getting to us. But let's take a look at the winds right now. We're looking at upwards of 35-mile-per-hour winds. It's moving westward, as mentioned, at 18 miles per hour, so Alberto isn't in the clear. But taking a look over towards the home turf, mostly we are looking at something forming, but nothing truly due to the dryness in the area. But let's look at the National Hurricane Center. They're saying it's about a 40% medium chance of a tropical depression forming over the next 48 hours. But as mentioned, due to the dryness in the air, it's really preventing anything from getting organized. It's keeping everything disorganized. But due to the tropical depression forming, the winds are higher, as you're seeing 30 knots of winds, and the sea level's choppy. So if you're a surfer or a fisher, I wouldn't recommend over this next day going out with your boat or your surfboard. But due to the circular of that tropical depression, it's trying to form, but not really given the opportunity. But let's take a look overnight. We shouldn't be seeing much weather for us, but we will be seeing light rain overnight. And then towards noon, you'll be seeing more rain, spotty rain, nothing really swarming. Gainesville, Florida's gonna be seeing some light rain. And then over the weekend, it should be mostly clear skies, mostly dry. But that reflects this as through Sunday. For most of the cities in Florida, you'll be seeing about an inch, less than an inch of rainfall. Daytona is seeing about 2 inches of rainfall, but let's stay home as we're seeing less than an inch of rainfall throughout Sunday. And then taking another look on campus, we're seeing about 90-degree weather, less than 90, feels about 90, but that tropical depression is affecting the wind. It's more windier than usual. We're seeing about 19-mile-per-hour wind with 28 gusts. Let's take a current look at that storm tracker. Not much going on. Towards 7 though, maybe something. Let's take a look at the wind due to the tropical depression. It's more windier than usual in Florida. We're seeing about 27 for us. We're leading the pack at this point with 27, but most of the cities around Florida are around the 20s. Let's take another look at temperatures. You're seeing about low 90s, high 80-degree temperatures around Florida. Take a look at the hourly, hour by hour, around 7, mostly clear skies. We're going to be seeing the sun and a little bit of clouds, but as the night goes on, you'll be seeing the temperature drop slowly and slowly as it creeps more into the 70s, and you might see some spotty weather. But if you take a look at the 7-day outlook, you will see some weather coming up this next week, about an 80% chance for most of the days. The temperature is going to stay around the mid to low 90-degree weather, but that Thursday, you won't be seeing much of the sun or the rainfall.
Coming up in sports, Jack Caglione has broken another school record. But the Gators baseball season comes to an end after a loss in the College World Series. This and more right after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome into sports. I'm Isa Rivera. The Gator baseball team's miraculous run for the national championship has come to an end. Texas A&M beat Florida 6-0 last night, handing the Gators their second loss of the tournament and ending their season. But the Gators surprised a lot of people by making it this far. Despite going 28-27 in the regular season and barely earning a spot in the playoffs, the Gators advanced all the way to the College World Series and finished as a top 4 team in the country. Florida head coach Kevin O'Sullivan says the Gators' accomplishments this season are nothing short of remarkable.
Speaking from my heart, I'm just awfully proud of them, for what they were able to accomplish this year and have this experience out here in Omaha.
Several players have now played their last game as a Gator, including two-way star Jack Caglione. In his 3 seasons as a Gator, Caglione set multiple Florida records, including most career home runs. He hit his 75th home run yesterday against Kentucky, passing Matt Laporta for the all-time Gators record. As a top 5 MLB draft prospect, Caglione will be heading to the majors soon, but he stressed that he will never forget his time as a Gator.
Like Tyler said, being able to wear this jersey for the past 3 years has been something that I'm going to take, I'm never going to take it for granted. All these guys who've won it before us, all we try to do is just make them proud and, really appreciate what Florida's about.
Caglione could join Wyatt Langford as the second Gator in the past 2 years to be drafted in the first 5 picks of the MLB draft. With the Gators' loss last night, the College World Series Finals is set, and we're once again getting an SEC showdown in the finals. Third-ranked Texas A&M will take on first-ranked Tennessee in a best-of-3 series starting Saturday with the national championship on the line. That means we are guaranteed to get a first-time champion because both the Aggies and Vols have never won a title. First pitch for Saturday's game in Omaha is at 7:30 p.m. One final note, 3-star Florida basketball comet Olivia Rio has grown even taller and is officially listed at 7'9", extending his record as the tallest teenager in the world.
7'9", that doesn't even sound real. I wonder what his shoe size is. I'm glad he's on our team. But let's take one more look at weather. We got a 7-day outlook. We're seeing about the 90s for the next week, but it's going to be raining for most of that week. We're seeing about mid-90s, 80% weather, but that Thursday's an oddball. Not much rain, but also not much heat. Looking at this upcoming weekend, we'll be seeing about 80s and 90s. Although it does say that it'll be about some rainfall, we shouldn't expect much.
Thanks for joining us. We're back here tomorrow for another edition of First at 5. But your North Central Florida news is always on at WUFT.org and on all of our social media platforms. Have a good night.